Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly and maintenance video for you on this little guy right here. This is the HEA Designs Falcon. A very interesting piece, and thanks to HEA for sending this guy along. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you will find that there is a first impressions component to this as well. So that will either be an incentive or a disincentive to stick around to the end. I don't know which, but that's personal. So one thing that I'll highlight here immediately is on this particular model, this back part here is actually a separate piece of titanium from the front part. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Given that oh, interesting. Why is this not coming apart? Maybe there is some thread locker that leaked in between there. So, okay. One option here is to provide a little bit of lateral force. Interesting. I'm assuming that this guy is not screwed into place. Why is this not coming loose? I'm going to try using this little spudger tool here to get in the middle there. I know it won't mar the titanium, so it's okay. But boy, this ain't coming anywhere. This isn't coming off. And if this isn't coming off, then we're not disassembling here. It's not ideal. All right. Let's try the other side. But I think I may be calling this. Yeah, I'm thinking this guy might have been over Loctited, such that I'm unable to get this scale off. Maybe some heat could get this loose. I wanted to, but the thing is, I'm not sure it's a battle worth fighting. Actually, here, oh, there we go. That came off. Okay. So it looks like the front side, I don't even know what's front and back anymore. There's no clip. So the, yeah, I'm out of labels here, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and slide this back in here real quick. And then put this back in here. And actually, it looks like it's for the best, though, because the screw head is on this side. All right, so we are, hey, we're back. That was a save. Not really a save. It was just a fact. Turns out there's only one side that needs to be. But the real question is, oh, wait, hold on. Maybe these screws go all the way into the other side. That's a possibility. No, they're not long enough for that. So, okay. Whatever. Popping this loose, and then looks like, is this T6 too? This is T6. Is that coming loose? So, okay. Comes apart from that side in the back, but from this side in the front. I don't fully understand any of this, and that's going to suck when it comes to reassembly. Absolutely, that's going to suck. The reason I say that is because, well, actually, will that matter? No, because I can hopefully, the question is which side the back spring comes out with, right? Can I pop this loose? Looks like I'm making progress here. Yeah, we're making progress. Only a matter of time before this guy pops off. I need to make sure, if I can, that the back spring stays on the back side of it, even though it's going to want to naturally... it looks like it's screwed in on that side as well. Oh boy. Okay, there's that. Looks like this side has come loose. But unfortunately, the back spring wants to stay attached to the other side, which is not great because... Okay, we're going to power through. I'm going to pull this pivot out here, and that's... What we may end up having to do is actually swap the position of this pivot screw so that the external part is... so basically that the male end is going in the other side. Oh boy. I think that the other side just got Loctited shut. I kind of suspect that's what's going on here, that there's a little bit of Loctite got in between those, and that the other side screws in as well, and that would be much easier, but it doesn't really change the nature of the beast, unfortunately. What if I do this? Can I just get in there and And again, I'm using this prying tool. And by the way, if you're curious about any of the tools I'm using for this or any other disassembly, go to nickshabazz.com/tools, and you'll get a better sense of everything that I'm using here. Oh, I may be about to make a massive mistake here by taking this guy further apart, because unfortunately the slip joint spring can make things difficult. But maybe not. I don't know. Let's see here. This might be possible. He says whilst doing it. All right. Why is that? Is that? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we are popped loose now. What we see here is, why did this side not want to... And there went the pivot screw. Okay, well, this is going well. Okay, so this side of the pivot is D-shaped, so that's why it wasn't spinning from this direction. Okay, that's fine. I can work with this. Now, the real question is, why aren't these things... Why didn't these two sides come apart? Maybe I'm going to... Okay, here's what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to remove these other two screws here. One more time. And you're right, I have removed them and then unremoved them and then removed them again. But I'd really love to be able to put this guy back together because, okay, let me walk you through my pain. Right now, this guy wants to go back together as follows. You want the pivot to be in here, and then you want to have the back spring along the top here, and then you put everything back together in that way. That actual brass? Interesting. Anyways, that would be the easiest way to take this guy apart, to put this guy back together. Unfortunately, having the back spring on the other side is not helpful. Neither is having the... And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it can remove these pins and put the back spring there. And it doesn't look like I can put the... Well, actually, I might still be able to swap the direction of the pivot. But that's not great because it's no longer free spinning. I'm hoping very much that what I can do is pop this... I'd like to remove this back spring real quick. But what I'm hoping very much is that I can remove this guy off of here. And then... get the get these two pieces of scale apart here. So I think that would just be better. Absolutely better. Although, boy, that doesn't want to come off either, does it? Tight fit. Very tight fit. Little percussive maintenance there. Again, it's a soft work surface, so it's not going to hurt anything, but I do want to try and get something in here to try and disconnect these pieces. There we go. Okay, so that popped loose finally. Now, there is nothing else holding these in place, holding these together. I see in there Loctite, like coming apart slowly. Okay, good. All right, so that was interesting. Now, here's the next step. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to try and... Yeah, okay. So then these guys go here. This is more complicated than it really needs to be. And it wouldn't have been as complicated had I not had to do the... and that's free spinning. Nice. Because there's too much thread locker on there. Okay. So, here's what we're going to do. This is exactly what we're going to do here. I'm going to put this right here. I'm going to put this on the other side. This knife is not ready for reassembly yet, but I'm going to act like it is for just a second. I'm going to take my driver. I'm going to take some thread locker. And then I'm going to, and by the way, I've got all these screws arranged in the same way they come off the knife here. I'm going to screw this in to the other side. Hopefully making at least that, the posts for the backspace are now captive on this side. Then that will allow me to, I hope, having this guy screwed in on this side sufficiently, I'm hoping will remove the ability of this to spin freely, and no, that's just coming loose, isn't it? Okay, so then let's use a T6 driver. This is fiddly, and this is all T6. Oof. Okay, which side am I trying to get loose? I want this side to be the one that remains. Okay, so I'm going to tighten. Now I'm going to loosen. Good. There we go. Finally, I've got that in there. So now what I can do is lift this off, and now the knife is ready for disassembly. Let's put this in place here, this little pin in the back here. Now we cleaned the damn thing. Whew. And actually, yeah, well, I'm at it. Actually, I'm not going to bother putting the other ones on there yet because I want to maybe. Then it looks like we've got a stop pin here, and we also have a strong back spring. So that might be a pain in my neck, but let's take that. Let's take the hits as they come, so to speak. So anyways, this is a slip joint design. As you're probably noticing already, it's running on some kind of a brass washer sort of affair. I apologize for the eczema on my finger. That is unfortunately life. And everything else looks relatively straightforward. One of the things I started trying to say earlier on, and I don't know if I ever said that, is that these pieces of titanium are separated. They are independent of anything else, and that means they can be anodized a different color than the original. And in fact, I've seen other versions of this that have, for instance, a blue anode in the back or something like that, and that's attractive, honestly. That looks good. In some ways, I think this particular model is probably the least attractive of the HEA Designs Falcons here. It's not like a dig or anything. They're just, at least to me, kind of is. Let's go ahead and clean off the pivot here. I'm going to use knife pivot lube here. The reason I'm using this particular product is that it just seems to work just a little bit better. It's a fair amount of thread locker in there, but that's okay. A little bit better on washer action knives. So I'll go ahead and put some KPL right on the pivot itself, as well as I'll put some on the washers, but I'll clean the washers off first. There we go. But hopefully a little bit of lubrication will actually help this guy run a little nicer. Not that it was running poorly before, but yeah. You heard me go a little quiet there, but I was 99% sure I was about to scrub the whole disassembly, so I kind of calmed down a little bit, but then turns out it worked, so that's good. Just trying to clean off a little of this thread locker in there. Okay, so now we're going to start the reassembly process, slowly but surely. There's that damn thing falling out again. Put this in here. Then I need to put this little pin in here. And in order to seat that, I need to have the back spring a little bit further up. Taking apart slip joints is always risky because you have a spring, and there's not a lot of leverage on that spring, unfortunately. And so, yeah, that makes it difficult to get pieces back into position. See, I can lift it up there, but unfortunately, that only leaves like half a hand to be able to do things like seat this pin. Damn it. This could be a lot easier if I had, an extra vise or something like that, or another pair of hands. My wife was home. I could say, hey, wife, help. She'd think I was, having trouble rather than just being not a brilliant man. Well, this isn't a lack of brilliance. This is just lack of being an octopus, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll drop this washer down onto there. And we can do that. And lack of being an octopus, of course, because I do not have 8 hands or arms, etc. Okay, now this is the tricky part. This is the touch and go area, and that is getting this blade back onto the knife itself. So I need to basically push the blade upwards and push the spring upwards to allow me to seat the pivot in the middle of the blade. And given that I have, as my commenters regularly remind me, not so powerful hands, that's not always straightforward. Is there a tool that would help me with this? Probably. I don't know what that tool would be offhand. Commenters, if there's a tool that would help me with this that isn't a specialized jig per knife, I'm interested. Oh, are we making progress? We are. We're on to the chamfer at least. There we go. We're in place. Okay, beautiful. So now we have this in place. And this is, by the way, how a slip joint works. There's this little spring on the back here that this is the half stop. It's sitting like this, and this is the fully closed position. And so that's how a slip joint works. Oh, I am so dumb. In the name of education, I have unseated that. Okay. Well, let's redo all that work, shall we? Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I'll just do a disassembly real quick before I go live on Twitch. It won't take much time. Come on, it's a little titanium slip joint. Easy peasy. There we go, that's in place. Okay. One more time, and this time I'm actually going to go ahead and lubricate. This is fine, but I'm going to lubricate this back portion as well. It'll need to be lubricated for the slip jointitude anyways, but this might actually help me slide into place a little bit easier. So yeah. Okay. Good. Lift. There we go. And push the pivot the rest of the way down through. That just disengaged my stop pin, but I don't care. Okay, good. Now, whew, let's take some inventory here. Not dicking with that at all. That is in place. This is in place. This is in place. Now I need to put in a washer. Oh, boy. Okay. Put in the washer. I'll just lubricate the back side of this as well because... yeah, well, I'm in here. Next step is this. I pop this into place. Okay. Why is this not fully snapping into place? It's probably... some very small misalignment here. What I'm going to try and do... okay, it's in place up to here. There we go. Now we're popped together. Everything's okay. We should be out of the danger zone here. What I'm going to go ahead and do is, first off, I'm going to put the pivot into place. And I'm going to go ahead and use some blue Loctite on a stick here, just so everything stays in position. The pivot is not fully seated yet, so I'll be kind of using the screw to pull the pivot into position here. Is it ideal? No, not necessarily, but it will work. So what we see here is that the pivot is being pulled through and seating itself down in there. I'm not doing super tight now at the moment, but that's fine. Now, next step is going to be to put in these back screws here. I have... okay. That screw and that screw are the ones I am using for this portion to go in there. So I'll screw this into place, I believe. That should do. And then this one as well. And then we should be able to just screw on these other parts of the handle. Is that too long? No? Okay, we're okay. Okay. Action is good. There's no problem here. Actually, it's better, frankly. As I drop the knife, luckily closed, into my lap, and then hit my Batman mask on the screen. Okay. Oh, look at that. That's shouldered. That's why that's not moving around. Okay. That's fine. Let's pop this into place. Good. Why is that? I'm wondering whether the back side here isn't fully tightened up. Or maybe the front side. I'm not sure. it almost feels like those screws are a little bit long. Could it be that I'm using the wrong screw? There's one way to find out. I know that if there is one of the screws that is too long, because it's possible that I've got, okay, good. These shouldn't be these shouldn't be different lengths. They are subtly different. Oh, good. So I've got a pile up here of screws. This is my, oh man, this is not my finest hour here. Okay, so then I know that I have 4 screws that are identical up here. And those 4 screws all go to the scale. I should have 2 screws that are different from the rest. These are the 2 screws that are different. Those are slightly different still. Okay. Maybe I have done this exactly backwards generally. Maybe all of these are backwards. There's that. And there's that. Okay. So let's very carefully align our screws here. We are 21 minutes into this. This has become an odyssey. Let's take a look at these screws carefully. I have one. Oh, of course, my tweezers are magnetized. That'll be good. 2, 3, 4. These are all alike. Okay, good. Now I have 1. I have 2, 3. Yes, magnetic tweezers. Thank you. 4. So I have 4 identical pieces here. The next question is whether the identical, well, okay, the small ones, the screw is a little too long. Generally, I'm better than this, but I'm disassembling. This kind of went off the rails early on. So the question here is whether the short screws go into the back spacer here or whether the long ones do. If the screws that I was putting in were too long, then that would make sense because they're both going into both sides, that it wasn't going to be long enough. Well, the tube wasn't going to be long enough, so they'd stick out, and therefore the sides wouldn't seat. So my bet is that I actually need the slightly longer screws for the scales and that the shorter screws are for the back spacer here. But I really should have kept those more separate. Generally speaking, the short ones go into the, although, again, there is actually a fair amount of prominence here in these, so it's not unreasonable that the longer screws might have gone in there. Wow. This is one of the reasons why I encourage you to act very deliberately as you're doing any kind of a disassembly and maintenance process, right? Because, frankly, it's very easy to make a mistake, and it's very easy to, well, screw things up. And it's good if you make sure that you're kind of doing things slowly, that you're going, that doesn't seem to fit. And rather than just kind of pushing on it, yeah, see, now that seats right. Okay, so I've done exactly that. The final test that I have here is when I put these longer screws in place. Oh, yeah, that's not going to stick out. Just to make sure that it, and actually I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the blade out just so I can see inside of here. I don't want these screws here to be sticking out into where the blade goes, because that's a sign that I screwed something way up. But actually, that's not possible, because there were literally only a certain number of screws on here, and there is not 4 of anything else. So I'm assuming this is the correct ordering, but still. Okay, so now what I do is I look inside of here, and I'll just take my little flashlight, and I will look and I will see that, in fact, the screws are not, trying to get the angle right, they're not sticking out inside the handle there. So that's good. That means I can close the knife, and there is no concern with it hitting those, and in fact, I've put this knife back together successfully. This is the other reason why I always, always, always recommend that when something goes wrong during a disassembly, you set it down and try again later, right? Rather than getting angry and, throwing the whole damn thing in the trash can, or rather than getting sort of angry and contacting the maker like, oh my God, you sold me a piece of crap. Just give it a moment and come back to it, right? That tends to help. Okay, now the final thing to check is there's a little tiny bit of blade play. Let's see if I can tighten that up using, again, my T6 driver here. Okay, no play. Slip joint the action. Never going to be like, oh my God, but it's fine. There we go. And no play. Beautiful. There we go. All right, so there we have the disassembly. Sorry about the, well, difficulty there. The difficulty in many ways came from inside of me, although the fact that one of these guys was bound on really made things a little bit more difficult there to start with. But anyways, we have now taken this apart, and it is now in a better situation, and we can now talk a little bit about how exactly I feel about the knife, my first impressions, right? This is a knife that actually, you know, unfortunately came to me on relatively short notice, right? The day I'm filming this is the day they become available. Generally, I try to get things, you know, when I can, up, you know, before the thing becomes available. But, you know, hey, well, I'll do my best, right? So my first impressions of this knife are very, very preliminary. But what I can say about it are a couple of things. A, to start with, it's nicely made, right? It's a solid little modern traditional sort of thing. The fake-looking jigged bone, and I say fake only because it's clearly not bone, right? It's, unless your bones are made of titanium. And I don't think that's a thing. Well, actually, it is a thing. Replacement limbs or hips, that is. Sorry, Batman mask, are often made of titanium. Anyways, I digress. That looks good. The fact that you can differentially anodize these, you know, finish them differently, that's kind of excellent too. Right now, this entire knife has a little bit of a 50 Shades of Gray look, because it's just gray, and some gray. And, you know, the blade being acid washed and everything doesn't necessarily do it for me. But you know what? It's absolutely fine. In terms of the action of it, it is much smoother now. And the back spring on it is actually surprisingly good. It has a half stop on there. The half stop is maybe not exactly what I wanted, because generally when I'm cutting with it, the half stop isn't really going to stop me that well. But it's fine. It's got a good safety there, and it's got enough back spring here that it's not like, oh my God, this is closing in an instant, right? It does come back closed, and I imagine that'll get smoother over time as you use the knife more. The blade on it is nice. It is a relatively thin blade here. And it actually comes down to a very thin, well, a relatively thin edge here. It is not quite, you know, oh my God, traditional thin, but you know what? For the kind of metal they're using, which I want to say, you're actually going to have to look that up online. I'd rather not tell you the incorrect answer, but I don't remember being this, you know, angry about the metal choice here. It's not surgical stainless. But anyways, for a lot of modern steels, you don't want to go, oh my God, super thin with it. But it comes down to a very thin edge here. It is relatively easy to open without any kind of, like it's got this big easy grab on both sides. So you can pop this guy open, even though there's not like an easy open notch or anything like that down there. And like I said, it's generally a nice piece. It is a little heavier than I expected, partly because it's a big old chunk of titanium, right? It is coming in at 71 grams, or in a unit that people in knife world use, 2.54 ounces, which is, and the overall length of it is 2.75 inches. So it's not like, oh my God, heavy, but it's a dense little guy. There is no clip to it, which is going to be a pro and a con. The back here doesn't match up completely, but that's also very common in modern slip joints. And, you know, again, given that you've got this piece sticking up, you don't want that to be a super sharp corner, right? So on the whole, I'm actually quite impressed with the piece. I think it works out quite well, aside from the disassembly being a little bit hair-raising in places there. And again, that was partly me, partly it, right? Well, actually, that was mostly me, let's be real here. But it seems to work well. It is quite straightforwardly disassemblable if you keep your damn screws right. And yeah, everything else looked good. So anyways, that's my disassembly and first impressions of the HEA Designs Falcon here. Very cool little piece, and it's nice to see more modern traditional style stuff, and hopefully this will be a little bit more accessible. You know, this is an initial run thing going on at the moment, but he said he's interested in making more if they sell a bunch more, so that's a beautiful thing. So anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you. Have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.